You've got 72 hours to tear it all down, or we'll do it for you with a bulldozer.
The sheriff stared me down on my own porch, badge gleaming. I'm Ryan Sterling. 3 years, $127,000 from my divorce. Every splinter of my great-grandfather's 1924 Victorian mansion restored to perfection. Permits greenlit, inspections flawless, 0 violations. Then HOA tyrant Constance Whitmore declared my eyesore violated the aesthetic. She sicked the county sheriff to force demolition. 3 years of blood, sweat, and my last savings gone in 3 days. Except, while she schemed, I unearthed the original 1924 deed in Grandpa's attic safe. Turns out this entire property, and half her precious neighborhood, was carved out as an exemption from any HOA rules. Forever. She's not just wrong. She's about to lose everything she built her power on. What would you do if they came for your home? Drop your state plus worst HOA nightmare below. Let's expose them together. Ryan Sterling's great-grandfather built this mansion with railroad money in 1924, back when men knew how to swing hammers and didn't need YouTube tutorials for basic carpentry. By 2020, the place looked like a haunted house. 4 years empty after great-grandpa Ezekiel passed, lawyers fighting over every doorknob while paint peeled off turrets and weeds ate the wraparound porch. Ryan would drive by after divorce court, watching his family history rot while his ex-wife got the suburban ranch and half his construction business. $127,000. That's what his 22-year marriage was worth after the lawyers finished feeding. Ryan took every penny and bought out his siblings' shares. His brother called him insane. His sister said midlife crisis. Ryan called it salvation. The smell hit you first, sawdust mixed with linseed oil and a century of family memories baked into the walls. Ryan stripped away decades of bad decisions. Shag carpet over original hardwood, paint slapped over hand-carved wainscoting, drop ceilings hiding ornate plasterwork that belonged in a museum. Every morning, those vintage radiators clanked to life like an old man's joints, filling rooms with the metallic scent of steam heat. But the sound meant the house was breathing again. The original floorboards creaked stories under his work boots, honest wood that had supported 3 generations of Sterling feet, smooth as silk from decades of family footsteps. Ryan researched every detail like an obsessed historian. When Home Depot paint wouldn't cut it, he spent 3 months tracking down historically accurate sage Victorian green at triple the cost. City Inspector Randy Kowalski, Millbrook Heights born and raised, nephew of old Mrs. Ethel who lived 3 houses down, signed off on everything, whistling at the craftsmanship. Haven't seen work like this since my grandfather's day, Ryan. The neighborhood had character back then. Old-timers like Ethel remembered when Millbrook Heights was working families and railroad money before it got subdivided and gentrified. Now it was split between longtime residents who appreciated history and newcomers who saw everything as potential profit. Life was good for exactly 18 months. Then Constance Whitmore slithered into the neighborhood like a designer-dressed real estate vampire. She'd moved from her previous flip house in 2018, bought low, improved it with builder-grade everything, sold for double to some sucker who didn't know particle board from solid oak. White Mercedes, white teeth, white-hot opinions about everyone else's property values. Her real estate license gave her just enough knowledge to be dangerous and just enough commission income to feel superior to Ryan's construction calloused hands. By 2020, she'd sweet-talked her way into the HOA presidency with promises of maintaining standards, which apparently meant destroying anything with actual character. Her campaign slogan might as well have been, "Make Millbrook Heights boring again." Ryan first met the devil on a Tuesday morning, hand-sanding porch spindles that were older than her Botox treatments. Her Mercedes purred into his driveway like a mechanical predator. Leather interior probably worth more than most people's annual salary. "You must be the new owner," she announced, not bothering with introductions. Voice sweet as artificial sweetener. You knew it was fake, but the chemical aftertaste lingered in your brain. Ryan wiped sawdust and sweat from his palms, leaving his hands feeling rough against the fine powder. "Just restoring what my great-grandfather built. Every permit city approved." That smile could have frozen hell in July. "Oh, honey, city permits are just the bare minimum. This is a homeowners association. We have standards that actually protect everyone's investment." She handed him a packet thick enough to stop bullets, 73 pages of HOA covenants printed on paper that probably cost more than Ryan spent on groceries that week. You'll want to study these very carefully. Some of your choices need serious reconsideration. That night, Ryan spread the legal nonsense across his restored kitchen table, reading by a 1920s chandelier he'd rewired himself. Buried in the bureaucratic bullshit, all exterior modifications must maintain architectural consistency with surrounding properties. Translation: your house is too beautiful for our vanilla neighborhood. The violation notice arrived like a death sentence at dawn. Non-compliant exterior color scheme. Fine, $500 per day until corrected. Ryan stared at the violation notice, coffee growing cold in his calloused hand. The bitter taste matched his mood perfectly. His historically accurate paint, researched for 3 months, costing triple what Home Depot would charge, was apparently a crime against Constance's vision of suburban beige perfection. He called the HOA office, got voicemail with Constance's syrupy voice promising to address concerns in the order received, called her cell directly. "Oh, Ryan," fake sympathy oozed through the speaker. "I know it's disappointing, but the Architectural Review Committee voted unanimously. Rules protect everyone's property values." "What committee meeting? I never got notice." "Emergency situations don't allow for lengthy notification periods, honey. Emergency." His historically accurate paint was apparently more dangerous than a gas leak. Ryan had learned something during his divorce proceedings that most people never discover. Documentation beats emotion every single time in legal battles. So he drove to City Hall, work boots echoing in marble corridors that reeked of bureaucracy and broken dreams. Randy Kowalski was finishing his inspection rounds, clipboard tucked under one arm like a teacher's gradebook. "Ryan, what's eating you? You look like someone stole your truck." "Randy, I need official documentation that my exterior work meets all city codes. Constance is claiming violations." Randy glanced around, lowered his voice to barely above a whisper. "Between you and me, I've inspected half this neighborhood. Your restoration work belongs in Architectural Digest. But that woman calls my supervisor twice weekly, claiming you're running some illegal construction racket. Every nail's permitted and documented." "I know that, but she's got photos that tell a different story." Randy pulled out his phone with the reluctance of someone sharing bad news. Ryan saw his mansion from various angles, but something felt wrong, like looking at a funhouse mirror version of his property. The shadows fell at impossible angles, creating dramatic contrasts that made normal construction look suspicious. "These timestamps claim Tuesday at 2 p.m., Randy continued, his 20 years of inspection experience evident in his tone. "But look at these shadow patterns. Either physics stopped working in your yard, or somebody's been playing photographer with fake lighting." Ryan remembered something his divorce attorney had hammered into him. Always assume your opponent is smarter and more ruthless than they appear. Constance wasn't just filing complaints. She was manufacturing evidence. "Tuesday was overcast all day," Ryan said, pieces clicking together in his mind. "Exactly. These photos show direct sunlight that didn't exist." That evening, Ryan pulled up his security camera footage, a system he'd installed after a rash of neighborhood tool thefts. Digital timestamps don't lie, unlike certain HOA presidents. There it was. Tuesday, 2:47 p.m., Constance's white Mercedes parked across from his driveway like a predator watching prey. Her telephoto lens glinted as she documented his work from the shadows. But the smoking gun came at 11:23 p.m. A different vehicle, beat-up sedan that screamed, "Hired help," parking in the exact same spot. Someone emerged with professional camera equipment and portable lighting, recreating the same angles under artificial conditions. Ryan felt the familiar surge of adrenaline he'd experienced in construction disputes, the moment you realize your opponent just handed you the tools for their destruction. He compiled everything: original photos with embedded metadata, National Weather Service records showing overcast conditions, his security footage capturing the deception in real time. Then he made a call that would change everything. Jennifer Walsh from Channel 7 News had been hunting for a David versus Goliath story, and Ryan's situation hit every checkbox: decorated veteran, family legacy, bureaucratic bullying. When she arrived with her news crew, the smell of fresh coffee mixed with sawdust created an authenticity that couldn't be faked. "You're alleging that the HOA president submitted falsified evidence to city officials?" Jennifer's eyes sparkled with the anticipation of a journalist who'd stumbled onto genuine corruption. I'm showing you timestamps that don't match weather records and video proof of staged photography. Jennifer's crew documented everything with the thoroughness of crime scene investigators. The museum-quality restoration work, the bogus violation notices, the side-by-side comparison of real versus manipulated photos. But television gold came when Jennifer called Constance for her response. Mrs. Whitmore, we have documented evidence of photo manipulation in your city complaints. Would you care to comment? The call lasted exactly 12 seconds, just long enough for Constance to unleash profanity that would embarrass a sailor before slamming down the phone. The story aired Thursday evening. Veteran homeowner battles HOA photo fraud. By Friday morning, Ryan's violation notice had vanished from official records faster than free beer at a construction site. Victory tasted like perfectly aged bourbon, smooth, satisfying, with just enough burn to remind you it was earned. But Ryan was about to learn that humiliating someone like Constance Whitmore doesn't end the war. It just teaches them to fight dirtier. Saturday morning brought Constance's revenge served ice cold with his coffee. Excessive noise violation. Power tools operated at 6:30 a.m. Friday, disturbing neighborhood peace. Ryan nearly choked on his first sip, the bitter liquid burning his throat. According to her complaint, he'd been running a circular saw before dawn, shattering the suburban tranquility that Constance apparently believed was her personal property to protect. Small problem. Friday morning, Ryan had been 300 miles away watching his daughter graduate college. The pride had swelled in his chest as she walked across that stage, diploma in hand, 4 years of late-night study sessions finally paying off. He had hotel receipts, gas station timestamps, and about 200 witnesses who'd seen him ugly crying in the auditorium when they called her name. But here's something Ryan had learned during 20 years of managing construction crews. You don't just play defense against liars. You go on offense and expose the whole damn system. He spent $47 at the county courthouse, a building that smelled like old paper and bureaucratic defeat, copying every HOA violation filed in Millbrook Heights over 2 years. The pattern emerged like a photograph developing in chemical baths. Once you saw it, you couldn't unsee it. Constance wasn't randomly enforcing rules. She was systematically targeting anyone who didn't fit her vision of suburban perfection. Elderly widow Mrs. Patterson got cited for excessive garden decorations, a memorial bird bath for her deceased husband. Young couple with twins received violations for unapproved playground equipment, a swing set identical to 3 others on the same street that somehow escaped Constance's laser-focused attention. Every targeted homeowner earned less than $60,000 annually. Every ignored violator drove cars worth more than most people made in a year. Ryan discovered something that should be taught in high school civics but never is. Selective enforcement isn't just unfair, it's legally indefensible. HOAs can't target specific residents while ignoring identical violations elsewhere. Courts call it discrimination, and judges hate it more than pineapple on pizza. He was documenting everything with crime scene precision when his phone rang. Unknown number, but something made him answer. Ryan, this is Janet Peterson, HOA board member. We need to talk, privately. They met at the Starbucks on Main Street, neutral territory that smelled like overpriced coffee and corporate ambition. Janet looked nervous, stirring her latte like she was mixing concrete. I've been on this board 3 years, she began, voice barely above a whisper. Constance has been aggressive in her enforcement, but what you don't know is that she owns 4 rental properties in the neighborhood through an LLC. Ryan felt his blood pressure spike. Rental properties? Properties that somehow never receive violation notices despite having the same issues she cites everyone else for. Ryan, I think she's been using HOA enforcement to drive down property values, then buying properties cheap through shell companies. The pieces clicked together like a perfectly fitted joint. Constance wasn't just power hungry, she was running a real estate scam using the HOA as her weapon. Target working-class homeowners with endless violations and legal fees until they're forced to sell at below-market prices, then swoop in through her investment company and flip them for profit. Do you have proof? Ryan asked. Janet slid a manila folder across the table. Property records, LLC filings, and violation patterns going back 3 years. She's acquired 6 properties this way, always from homeowners she'd been harassing. This was bigger than Ryan versus Constance. This was systematic fraud disguised as suburban governance. Armed with nuclear evidence, Ryan attended the next HOA meeting. The community center buzzed with unusual energy. Word had spread that something big was happening. 43 residents showed up instead of the usual 12, folding chairs arranged like a courtroom where justice was about to be served. Constance sat at the head table, gavel in hand, surveying her kingdom with the confidence of someone who believed she was untouchable. "Mr. Sterling, I trust you're here to discuss compliance with community standards." "Actually, I'm here to discuss your real estate investment strategy." Ryan spread the evidence across the table like a royal flush in a high-stakes poker game. Property records showing Constance's LLC purchases. Violation patterns targeting only homeowners who later sold at distressed prices. Financial documents revealing her systematic profiteering. For 3 years, you've been weaponizing HOA violations to force residents to sell, then buying their properties through hidden companies at below-market prices. That's not community management. That's organized fraud. The room erupted like a shaken soda bottle. Residents who'd been quietly suffering under Constance's harassment suddenly realized they'd been marks in a con game. The elderly widow who'd sold her house last year for $30,000 below appraisal stood up, shaking with rage. "You destroyed my garden and forced me to sell my home so you could profit?" Constance's face went white as primer paint. For the first time since Ryan had known her, the predator looked like prey. "These are wild accusations without merit," she stammered, but her voice cracked like cheap drywall under pressure. Ryan had exposed more than harassment. He'd uncovered organized real estate fraud. But cornering a criminal doesn't make them surrender. It makes them dangerous. Constance's nuclear option arrived Tuesday morning via process server, wrapped in legal letterhead thick enough to stop bullets. The lawsuit read like a horror novel. Whitmore versus Sterling, nuisance abatement and injunctive relief. Ryan scanned the pages while his coffee turned bitter as his mood. Constance sought immediate court orders, halting all construction, claiming his restoration posed imminent danger to neighborhood safety. She detached sworn affidavits from 3 neighbors, all recent HOA converts, describing his work as creating unbearable noise, dust, and traffic hazards. The punchline? She wanted $50,000 in damages for emotional distress and diminished property values. Emotional distress. From a woman running real estate fraud schemes. Ryan called Sarah Cole, his attorney who specialized in making HOA tyrants soil themselves. Her office smelled like expensive leather and the kind of confidence that comes from destroying bullies in court. "She's desperate," Sarah said, scanning the lawsuit with predatory focus. "But she made a fatal error, filing this personally instead of as HOA president. That opens her entire business operation to legal discovery." Discovery meant Constance would have to reveal everything. Bank records, property deals, private communications, business partnerships. If she was running cons through the HOA, they were about to get front row seats to her entire criminal enterprise. Ryan was hand-sanding dining room crown molding that afternoon, work requiring the precision his great-grandfather would have demanded, when gravel crunched outside. A Channel 7 investigative team van had pulled up behind Jennifer Walsh's sedan. Jennifer knocked, carrying documents thick as a phone book, and wearing the expression of a bloodhound who'd caught a scent. "Ryan, Constance's operation is massive. This goes way beyond harassing you." They spread evidence across his kitchen table, transforming the restored surface into a war room for exposing suburban corruption. Jennifer had traced Constance's pattern across 3 subdivisions over 5 years. Identical playbook everywhere. "Same strategy every time," Jennifer explained, her investigative instincts sharp as a surgeon's blade. "Get elected HOA president, target vulnerable homeowners with manufactured violations, force distressed sales, then acquire properties through shell companies at 30% below market value." The numbers made Ryan's stomach lurch. 37 properties, dozens of destroyed families, over $2 million in profit from systematic fraud, always targeting the defenseless, elderly widows, single mothers, people navigating divorces who couldn't afford prolonged legal warfare. But Jennifer had saved the smoking gun for last. She produced printed emails that made Ryan's hands shake with rage. Found these in the HOA's archived server. Constance strategizing with her business partner, attorney James Jameson, who specializes in what he calls regulatory property acquisition. Ryan read the email dated 6 months earlier, his vision blurring with fury. Sterling property represents ideal acquisition target. Isolated homeowner, significant financial investment at risk, no visible family support network. Standard harassment protocol should force distressed sale within 12 to 18 months. Post-renovation property value suggests 300,000 plus profit potential. Recommend immediate implementation. The metallic taste of pure rage filled his mouth like he'd been chewing copper wire. They'd been planning his destruction for months, treating his family's century-old legacy like livestock to be slaughtered for profit. But as Ryan processed this betrayal, something unexpected happened. His phone buzzed with a text from Randy Kowalski. Emergency. Meet me at City Hall. Now. 20 minutes later, Randy was pacing the courthouse steps like a caged animal, his inspection clipboard forgotten on a bench. Ryan, I fucked up. Bad. What happened? Remember when Constance offered me that consulting job? $5,000 to find violations in your work? Ryan nodded, remembering Randy's earlier confession about the bribery attempt. Well, I recorded that conversation, been sitting on it for weeks, not sure what to do, but this morning she cornered me in the parking lot, said if I testified for you in court, she'd destroy my career, claimed she has connections that could get my inspector's license revoked. Randy's hands shook as he pulled out his phone. But here's what she doesn't know. I've been recording every conversation since that first bribery attempt, including this morning's threat. He played the audio, Constance's voice, crystal clear, threatening to end Randy's career and make sure he never works in this county again if he supported Ryan's case. Ryan felt electricity surge through his veins. Witness intimidation was a felony. Constance had just handed them the nuclear option. Randy, you realize what this means? Yeah, it means we've got her dead to rights on criminal charges, not just civil violations. Ryan looked up at the courthouse steps, thinking about justice and family legacy and the sweet taste of victory that was about to get even sweeter. Constance had spent months planning his destruction, but she'd made one critical miscalculation. She'd assumed Ryan Sterling would fight alone. Tomorrow's news story was going to destroy more than Constance's reputation. It was going to expose an organized criminal enterprise that had been masquerading as suburban governance. But first, Ryan needed to make one phone call to someone who could turn witness intimidation into front-page headlines. Ryan spent that night digging through his great-grandfather's papers like a man possessed, the attic floorboards creaking under his knees as decades of dust tickled his throat. The old steamer trunk smelled like mothballs and family secrets, filled with documents that would have been trash to anyone else. But Ezekiel Sterling had been a railroad man, and railroad men documented everything. At 2:17 a.m., his flashlight beam illuminated gold. A manila envelope marked "Property Easements Permanent" in his great-grandfather's meticulous handwriting. Inside, yellowed but legally pristine, lay the original 1924 railroad corridor agreement that had made their property possible. The formal language made Ryan's eyes blur, but one paragraph blazed off the page like a divine revelation. The Sterling family and their heirs are granted perpetual maintenance access to Railroad Corridor Parcel 7B, including absolute rights to restore said corridor to original surveyed condition for drainage, structural integrity, and transportation purposes as deemed necessary. Ryan spread the attached survey map on the dusty attic floor, tracing property lines with a trembling finger that left smudges on century-old ink. The railroad corridor cut a perfect diagonal behind what was now Constance's pristine suburban paradise. Her $80,000 infinity pool, her Italian stone deck, her 3-car garage housing the white Mercedes, half her manicured backyard where she hosted wine and gossip sessions, all of it sitting on Sterling family easement land like squatters in a mansion. His hands shook as he called Sarah at 6 a.m., too electrified to wait for civilized hours. "Sarah, I found the nuclear option." "Ryan, it's barely sunrise. This better be spectacular. Constance built her entire backyard paradise on my family's railroad easement. We have perpetual rights to restore it to original condition." The silence stretched like a held breath before Sarah erupted. "Jesus Christ on a construction crane. Do you understand what you're holding? Tell me." Her pool, deck, garage, $180,000 in luxury improvements sitting on land she never had legal right to use. If we exercise your restoration rights, she loses everything or pays relocation costs that'll bankrupt her. Ryan felt the earth shift beneath his feet. power dynamics flipping like a house of cards in an earthquake. For months, Constance had wielded HOA authority like a medieval warlord. Now he held the deed to her kingdom. "It gets better," Sarah's voice crackled with predatory excitement. "She's been harassing you from illegally occupied land. That's not just trespassing. It's criminal harassment from a position she never legally held. No judge will take her lawsuit seriously." Ryan walked to his bedroom window, survey map clutched in white-knuckled fists, staring across yards toward Constance's house. Morning sunlight glinted off her pool like liquid diamonds, her deck furniture arranged for maximum suburban superiority, privacy fencing that screamed "keep out" to the peasants. All of it built on sterling family land without permission. The taste of impending victory filled his mouth like aged whiskey, smooth, warming, with just enough burn to remind you it was earned through suffering. "Sarah, this changes everything. Instead of defending against her attacks, we can destroy her entire property setup." "Ryan, you're holding a legal atomic bomb. She'll have to choose. Drop all harassment and lawsuits, or watch us demolish her backyard paradise to restore your family's easement rights." For the first time in months, Ryan smiled with genuine joy instead of grim determination. Constance had been so busy attacking his restoration that she'd never researched her own property's legal vulnerabilities. The predator had built her lair on someone else's hunting grounds. But Ryan was wise enough to know timing was everything. Let her escalate further. Let her commit deeper to a war she'd already lost without knowing it. Because when he finally revealed this trump card, it would end more than their personal battle. It would destroy her entire suburban empire in a single, perfectly legal stroke. Ryan spread the easement documents across Sarah's mahogany desk like a general planning D-Day, the morning coffee steam rising between them like incense at an altar of impending justice. "We hit her from 3 directions simultaneously," Sarah said, her pen dancing across legal pads with predatory precision. "Harassment lawsuit, selective enforcement claim, and easement restoration petition. She'll be like a one-legged cat in a sandbox, not sure which way to jump first." The harassment case was rock solid. Months of documented violations, falsified photos, witness intimidation recorded on Randy's phone. But Ryan had learned something during his construction career that applied perfectly to legal warfare. The foundation determines everything else, and their foundation was that 1924 railroad easement. Selective enforcement violations can trigger federal civil rights lawsuits, Sarah explained, pulling out precedent cases thick as phone books. When HOAs systematically target working-class homeowners while protecting wealthy violators, courts get very unhappy very quickly. Sarah connected him with Tom Bradley, a surveyor whose weathered hands had been settling property disputes since before GPS existed. Tom's equipment looked like something NASA would use, all lasers and satellites and digital precision that could locate property corners within millimeters. "Railroad easements from the 1920s were sacred law," Tom said, sipping coffee that could strip paint while his laser level painted bright red lines across Ryan's backyard. Railroad companies didn't negotiate property rights. They demanded absolute access for maintenance and emergency repairs. The equipment beeped confirmations that sounded like slot machines hitting jackpots. Tom's measurements revealed what Ryan had hoped. Constance's infinity pool, Italian stone deck, and 3-car garage sat exactly 12 feet into Sterling family easement land. Her pool filtration system, electrical connections, structural foundations, all trespassing on your legal corridor, Tom announced with the satisfaction of a man who'd just solved a century-old puzzle. Ryan felt electricity surge through his veins like he'd grabbed a live wire. This wasn't just legal leverage, it was complete demolition authority over Constance's suburban paradise. While Tom prepared survey documents that would hold up in federal court, Ryan built his community army. Ethel Kowalski's kitchen became campaign headquarters, the smell of fresh-baked chocolate chip cookies mixing with the scent of righteous rebellion. "That real estate vulture has been circling this neighborhood like buzzards over roadkill," Ethel told 8 longtime residents gathered around her table. "Time we clipped her wings permanently." The coalition included Randy's father, Pete, retired electrician with 40 years of union organizing experience, the Johnsons from Maple Street, both teachers who understood bureaucratic warfare, and Mrs. Patterson, the elderly widow whose memorial birdbath had triggered Constance's harassment campaign. Each neighbor carried stories of HOA abuse that would make a dictator blush. Pete's fence height violation for a structure identical to Constance's own property. The Johnsons' citation for excessive outdoor decorations. Christmas lights they'd hung for 30 years. Mrs. Patterson's forced removal of her husband's memorial garden because it allegedly violated landscaping uniformity standards. Ryan explained legal strategy in construction terms everyone understood. Selective enforcement is like using different building codes for your friends versus your enemies. Courts call it discrimination, and judges hate it more than contractors hate change orders. Jennifer Walsh's investigation had uncovered pure gold. Constance's attorney, James Jameson, was fighting disbarment proceedings for fraudulent billing and conflicts of interest in property acquisition cases. His legal license hung by a thread thinner than cheap drywall. Her legal representation is collapsing faster than a house built on quicksand, Jennifer reported during a phone call that crackled with investigative excitement. Jameson's trying to plea bargain his way out of disbarment. He might not even be licensed when this hits court. The media strategy crystallized perfectly. Sunday night exposé followed by Monday morning legal blitzkrieg. HOA President's real estate fraud empire would air during prime time, setting the stage for maximum legal and social devastation. But Ryan's favorite element was psychological warfare disguised as legitimate preparation. He rented excavation equipment and parked it prominently on his property line, consulted with drainage contractors who measured distances with theatrical precision, marked easement boundaries with fluorescent orange spray paint that glowed like radioactive warnings across previously pristine lawns. Every morning, Constance would see preparation for her property's destruction while not knowing exactly when the hammer would fall. The anticipation would gnaw at her like termites in load-bearing beams, destroying her sleep and rational decision-making. The taste of approaching victory was sweeter than aged bourbon, warming Ryan's chest as he watched orange survey markers transform Constance's paradise into a demolition zone. She'd spent months planning his family's destruction, treating his legacy like raw material for her profit machine. Now she'd learn what it felt like to watch your world get marked for demolition by someone who understood exactly where to place the explosives for maximum structural damage. By Sunday night, every piece would be positioned for coordinated assault that would end Constance Whitmore's suburban empire in a single, perfectly legal explosion. Sunday morning brought Constance's nuclear meltdown disguised as community service. Ryan found the flyers while checking his mail, crisp paper still warm from midnight printing runs. Someone had stuffed them into every mailbox on Willowbrook Drive like poisonous Halloween candy distributed by a psychopath in a pantsuit. "Dangerous resident alert," screamed the headline in blood-red letters designed to trigger neighborhood panic. Below it, a grainy telephoto shot of Ryan on his roof, circled like a sniper's target. The text read like a psychiatric evaluation written by someone who'd flunked basic sanity. Ryan Sterling exhibits escalating violent tendencies including obsessive property destruction, aggressive confrontations with peaceful neighbors, and suspected substance abuse stemming from documented divorce trauma. Children should not approach this individual. Women should avoid being alone near his property during his documented rage episodes. Ryan's hands shook with fury as he read it twice, his morning coffee turning acidic in his stomach. Constance had crossed from harassment into character assassination that could destroy his construction business, his relationships, and his reputation with surgical precision. But she'd made one critical error that would detonate in her face like a defective grenade. The flyers included his business name and contractor's license number, directly claiming his professional work was dangerous and substandard. That was defamation per se, written lies that damaged professional reputation without requiring proof of financial harm. Sarah had explained it was like stepping on a legal landmine specifically designed to blow up overzealous HOA tyrants. Ryan's phone exploded before 8 a.m. Pete Kowalski's voice carried 40 years of Union Hall warfare experience. "Ryan, that woman just pissed off every decent person in this neighborhood. Nobody with 2 functioning brain cells believes this garbage." The second call made his heart race. Jennifer Walsh, voice crackling with investigative bloodlust. "Ryan, she just committed multiple felonies in writing and distributed them using HOA funds. The entire board could be charged as accomplices. This is journalistic gold wrapped in legal dynamite." But the third call was pure victory candy. James Jameson, Constance's lawyer, sounding like someone whose house was burning while his fire insurance got canceled. "Mr. Sterling, I represent the HOA regarding potential dispute resolution without further complications." Ryan had learned enough legal warfare to recognize white flag negotiations. "Mr. Jameson, aren't you fighting disbarment proceedings? Should you be representing anyone?" The silence stretched like a piano wire before cracking. "My licensing status is transitional, but I can facilitate discussions between parties seeking mutually beneficial outcomes." Translation: his legal career was circling the drain faster than water in a busted toilet, and he wanted to cut surrender deals before everything flushed completely. "Refer all communications to my attorney, Sarah Cole. She handles capitulation negotiations." Constance wasn't done destroying herself. Monday brought the suicide bomb disguised as official governance, an emergency HOA meeting to address the sterling threat to community safety. The meeting notice reeked of legal toxicity so potent that Sarah actually cackled when Ryan showed it to her office, which smelled like expensive leather and impending courtroom carnage. "She just handed us federal civil rights violations wrapped in official letterhead with a bow on top," Sarah said, grinning like a shark that had spotted bleeding swimmers. "Emergency powers can't target individual homeowners without due process. She's violating constitutional protections like their traffic suggestions." Monday evening, Ryan walked into the community center to find 47 neighbors crammed into space designed for 20. The air tasted like tension and fluorescent lighting, battle lines drawn between longtime residents supporting Ryan and newer arrivals who'd swallowed Constance's suburban Kool-Aid. Constance sat at the head table looking like a defendant at her own execution, flanked by 3 board members who'd clearly rather be getting colonoscopies. Her trademark confidence had evaporated like spit on a summer sidewalk, replaced by desperate energy of someone who'd bet their house on a 3-legged racehorse. "This emergency session addresses ongoing disruptions caused by Mr. Sterling's refusal to comply with reasonable community standards," she began, her voice lacking its usual dictatorial authority. Ryan stood slowly, letting silence build like steam pressure in a boiler about to explode. The taste of approaching victory filled his mouth like aged whiskey, smooth, warming, with just enough burn to remind him it was earned through blood and patience. "Constance, before you dig that hole any deeper, you should know my attorney files federal lawsuits tomorrow morning based on your recent creative decisions. But tonight, I've got something more immediate to discuss." He pulled out Tom Bradley's official survey report, the document that would obliterate her suburban paradise like a cruise missile hitting a sandcastle. "Let's talk about your pool sitting on my family's railroad easement." The room went silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the sound of Constance's world beginning its final collapse. The survey report hit the table like a legal bomb, its official seal reflecting fluorescent light across 47 stunned faces. Constance's complexion went from suburban tan to morgue pale in the time it took Ryan to spread the easement map across the community center table. "According to this 1924 railroad easement," Ryan announced, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone holding nuclear weapons, "your infinity pool, stone deck, and 3-car garage are sitting 12 feet into Sterling family land, have been for 3 years." The silence stretched like a guitar string about to snap. You could hear the fluorescent lights humming their electric death song above the collective intake of breath from neighbors who suddenly understood they were witnessing a public execution. Constance's mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. That's impossible. We had surveys done, professional inspections." "Did you survey for 19th century railroad easements?" Ryan asked, enjoying the taste of victory like fine wine. "Because most people don't. Most people assume property lines are what they seem, but railroad men kept better records than the IRS, and my great-grandfather was very thorough." Board member Janet Peterson leaned forward, studying the survey map with the expression of someone watching a train wreck in slow motion. "Constance, if this is accurate, the HOA could be liable for improvements built on someone else's legal property." "It's not accurate!" Constance shrieked, her composure shattering like cheap drywall under pressure. "This is fabricated evidence, manufactured documents." Ryan pulled out his phone, scrolling to Tom Bradley's contact information. "Would you like to call the surveyor? He's licensed, bonded, and specializes in historical property disputes. Or we could call the county recorder's office. They have the original 1924 filing on microfilm." The trap was closing with mechanical precision, and Constance could feel the walls converging. But instead of surrendering gracefully, she chose the path of desperate people everywhere. Total escalation. "You're all being manipulated. she screamed, standing so fast her chair toppled backward. "This man is mentally unstable. He's been stalking my family, threatening our safety, destroying neighborhood property values with his obsessive delusions." Ryan had expected this. Cornered animals always attack before they die. But Constance's meltdown was more spectacular than he dared hope, her mask of suburban respectability dissolving in real time like makeup in a thunderstorm. "Mrs. Whitmore," Ethel Kowalski stood up with the careful dignity of someone whose 79 years had taught her to recognize bullshit from orbit. "You've been harassing this neighborhood for 3 years. We've all watched you target anyone who couldn't afford to fight back. But you picked the wrong Sterling to mess with." The room erupted in voices, some supporting Ryan, others defending Constance, most just shocked by the revelation that their HOA president had built her fortress on stolen land. The smell of tension mixed with industrial coffee and fluorescent lighting created an atmosphere thick as construction site dust. Constance pulled out her phone with shaking hands, dialing frantically. "James, I need you here immediately. Emergency legal consultation." Ryan could hear Jameson's voice through the speaker, thin and defeated. "Constance, I can't. My license was suspended this afternoon. State bar emergency hearing. I'm done." The color drained from Constance's face like water from a broken pipe. Her legal representation had just evaporated, leaving her exposed and defenseless in front of 47 neighbors who'd spent years under her tyrannical rule. "This isn't over," she hissed, gathering her papers with the desperate efficiency of someone whose house was on fire. "I'll find other attorneys. I'll fight this in federal court. I'll destroy you and your pathetic restoration project." Ryan smiled with the patience of someone who'd already won but was enjoying the encore performance. "Constance, you might want to check your homeowner's insurance policy. Most don't cover improvements built on other people's legal property. And I'm planning to exercise my restoration rights starting tomorrow morning." That's when she broke completely. "You can't. That pool cost $80,000. The deck was imported Italian stone. The garage houses my Mercedes. Should have researched property lines before building your suburban Taj Mahal on railroad easement land." Constance looked around the room like a cornered animal seeking escape routes, finding only neighbors who'd spent years suffering under her bureaucratic terrorism. The taste of community justice filled the air like ozone before a thunderstorm. "Fine," she spat, her voice cracking with rage and defeat. "But if you think this ends here, you're stupider than your divorce papers suggested. I've got connections throughout this county. I'll make sure you never work construction again. I'll destroy your business, your reputation, everything you've built." Ryan felt electricity surge through his veins. She'd just made criminal threats in front of 47 witnesses, sealing her legal fate with the precision of a master carpenter driving the final nail into a coffin. "Constance, you might want to stop talking. Everything you say is being recorded for tomorrow's federal lawsuit filing." The war was over. She just hadn't realized she'd lost yet. Tuesday morning arrived with the crisp bite of October air and the sweet smell of impending justice. Ryan stood on his front porch at 6 a.m., coffee steaming in his hands, watching Tom Bradley's surveyor crew mark easement boundaries with fluorescent orange paint that glowed like warning beacons across Constance's perfect lawn. The excavator arrived at 6:30, its diesel engine rumbling like mechanical thunder as it positioned 18 inches from Constance's pool deck. Ryan had hired Peterson Construction, the same company that built half the neighborhood, to restore the railroad corridor to original 1924 specifications for proper drainage. Everything completely legal, everything perfectly timed. Constance emerged from her house at 6:47, still in silk pajamas and designer slippers, her hair looking like she'd stuck her finger in an electrical socket. The sight of heavy machinery threatening her suburban paradise triggered a meltdown visible from space. "Stop!" she screamed, running across her manicured lawn like someone escaping a burning building. "You can't do this! That equipment is trespassing." Ryan sipped his coffee, savoring the bitter taste mixed with sweet satisfaction. "Morning, Constance. Just exercising my family's legal easement rights. All permits approved by the county." She pulled out her phone, dialing 911 with shaking fingers. "Sheriff's Department? I need immediate assistance. Someone's destroying my property with construction equipment." The deputy arrived within minutes, the same one who'd served Ryan demolition papers just weeks earlier. Deputy Morrison stepped out of his patrol car looking like someone who'd rather be directing traffic than mediating neighborhood wars. "What's the situation here?" Morrison asked, his hand instinctively resting on his radio. "This maniac is trying to destroy my pool," Constance shrieked, pointing at the excavator like she was identifying a murder weapon. Ryan handed Morrison the survey report, easement documentation, and county permits with the calm efficiency of someone who'd prepared for this moment like D-Day. "Officer, I'm restoring my family's 1924 railroad easement to original condition. Everything's legally authorized." Morrison studied the documents with the careful attention of someone who understood that paperwork trumped screaming every time. "Ma'am, these look legitimate. Property easements supersede later improvements." That's when Jennifer Walsh arrived with her Channel 7 news crew, cameras rolling to capture Constance's public disintegration in high-definition glory. The white van with satellite equipment attracted neighbors like a fire truck at a house fire. Within minutes, 37 residents had gathered to witness the execution of their HOA dictator. This is Jennifer Walsh reporting live from Millbrook Heights, where a property dispute has escalated into legal warfare between neighbors, Jennifer announced, her voice carrying the professional excitement of someone covering a story that would win awards. Constance spotted the cameras and transformed from screaming banshee into fake victim with the speed of someone changing masks. "This man has been terrorizing our peaceful neighborhood for months. He's mentally unstable and dangerous." Ryan felt the familiar surge of adrenaline that came with recognizing the perfect moment to deploy nuclear weapons. He pulled out his phone, scrolling to the audio recordings Randy had made of Constance's bribery attempts and witness intimidation threats. "Jennifer, would you like to hear recordings of Mrs. Whitmore offering bribes to city officials and threatening to destroy careers of anyone who supported my case?" He hit play, and Constance's voice filled the morning air with crystal clarity. "If you testify for Sterling, I'll end your career. I have connections that can revoke your inspector's license permanently." The crowd gasped like witnesses at a magic show where the assistant actually got sawed in half. Constance's face went white as primer paint, realizing her own words had just destroyed her in front of cameras that would broadcast her crimes across the entire metropolitan area. That's taken out of context," she stammered, but her voice lacked conviction, like someone trying to explain away photographic evidence of bank robbery. Deputy Morrison stepped forward, his expression shifting from mediator to law enforcement officer. "Ma'am, I need you to come with me for questioning regarding possible witness intimidation and bribery allegations." "Shh. You can't arrest me. I'm the HOA president. I have rights." "You have the right to remain silent," Morrison replied, reaching for his handcuffs with practiced efficiency. But the crescendo came when Sarah Cole arrived carrying documents thick as phone books and wearing the predatory smile of someone about to deliver legal death blows. "Mrs. Whitmore, you're being served with federal lawsuits for harassment, discrimination, witness intimidation, defamation, and violation of civil rights. Also, the FBI has opened an investigation into your real estate fraud scheme based on evidence we provided yesterday." Constance looked around desperately, seeking escape routes that didn't exist. Allies who'd abandoned ship, legal options that had evaporated like water on hot concrete. The excavator operator, apparently deciding the show was over, fired up his machine and took the first ceremonial bite out of Constance's pool house foundation. The sound of concrete cracking echoed across the neighborhood like thunder announcing the end of a very long, very expensive storm. Justice tasted sweeter than homemade apple pie. 6 months later, Ryan stood on his completed wraparound porch, watching children play on the new community trail that now ran through what used to be Constance's backyard paradise. The morning air carried the scent of fresh paint and newly planted flowers, the smell of a neighborhood healing itself. Constance had fled Millbrook Heights within 30 days of her arrest, selling her house to a cash buyer for 40% below market value. The FBI's investigation had uncovered her real estate fraud network across 3 counties, resulting in federal charges that would keep her busy with lawyers for years. Her HOA presidency had been terminated faster than a construction worker caught stealing tools. The pool and deck were gone, replaced by a walking trail that connected the historic district to the new city park system. Ryan had donated the easement for permanent public use, transforming what had been private luxury into community benefit that would serve generations. "Best decision I ever made," Ryan told Jennifer Walsh during her follow-up interview, the one that won her a regional Emmy for investigative journalism. "My great-grandfather would have loved seeing neighborhood kids playing where that woman tried to build her fortress of suburban snobbery." The new HOA board, elected unanimously by residents who'd experienced Constance's reign of terror, focused on community building rather than enforcement. Ethel Kowalski served as president with the wisdom of someone whose 79 years had taught her that neighbors should help each other, not destroy each other. Ryan's restoration work had been featured in Victorian Society magazine, attracting visitors from across the state who wanted to see authentic 1920s craftsmanship restored to museum quality. The property value had increased 40%, benefiting everyone in the neighborhood except the former residents who'd sold under Constance's pressure campaigns. The legal settlements had been spectacular. Sarah Cole's lawsuits resulted in $340,000 in damages and attorney fees, plus injunctive relief that prevented future HOA harassment. The precedent established by Ryan's case had been cited in 17 other HOA abuse cases across the state, creating legal protections for homeowners that would last decades. But Ryan's favorite victory was personal. His relationship with his kids had strengthened through the battle. Both his daughter and son had seen their father fight for something meaningful instead of just working to pay bills. They visited regularly now, proud of the old man who'd refused to surrender his family's legacy to suburban bullies. "Dad, you're like a folk hero," his daughter said during Sunday dinner at the restored mansion, the dining room table surrounded by 3 generations of family and friends. "I showed your story to my college roommates. They want to visit and see the house that took down an evil HOA." The Heritage Preservation Scholarship had awarded its first $10,000 grant to Randy Kowalski's daughter, who was studying civil engineering with plans to specialize in historic building restoration. The fund, supported by mansion tours and community donations, would help local students learn trades that preserved architectural history. Ryan had started consulting with other HOA harassment victims, teaching them documentation strategies and connecting them with attorneys who specialized in homeowner rights. His experience had taught him something valuable. Bullies rely on isolated victims, but organized resistance destroys them more efficiently than heavy machinery. The annual Millbrook Heights Heritage Festival had become a regional attraction, celebrating the neighborhood's railroad history and architectural character. Families came from surrounding counties to tour historic homes, attend craft demonstrations, and enjoy community fellowship that honored the past while building the future. Standing on his porch that October morning, exactly 1 year after Constance had served him demolition papers, Ryan could hear the sounds of a healthy neighborhood. Children laughing on the community trail, neighbors greeting each other across garden fences, the distant sound of someone else lovingly restoring another old house. The taste of coffee mixed with autumn air and the satisfaction of battles won for the right reasons. His great-grandfather's mansion stood solid and beautiful, a testament to the idea that some things are worth fighting for, no matter how powerful the opposition seems. Ryan pulled out his phone to record a message for his YouTube channel, which had grown to 47,000 subscribers eager to hear stories about ordinary people defeating corrupt systems. Remember, folks, document everything, build community allies, and never let bullies convince you that their power is permanent. Sometimes the little guy wins, especially when he's got a century of family history and a really good attorney.
You know, Ryan spent 3 years putting everything he had into the house. His divorce settlement, his time, his family histories, and Constance thought she could just take it all away with 72-hour notice. That's $500 a day fine for using the right paint. I mean, when you really think about it, that tells you everything you need to know about how these people operate. They don't care about the rules or community standards. They care about control. The thing is, Ryan had every reason to just give up. Freshly divorced, saving rent, facing legal bill he couldn't afford. But instead of folding, he went up to that dusty attic and started going through his great-grandfather's old trunk. Most people would never think to look there. That railroad Edmunds from 1924, sitting there for the whole time. Constance built the whole Baghdad's paradise on land that never belonged to her. Sometimes, the universe had a sense of humor about these things. Have you ever dealt with someone like Constance in your neighborhood? Someone who thinks that position gives them the right to rearrange other people's lives. I'm curious what that looks like where you are. If this story hit home for you, hit that like button. And if you got your own HOA nightmare you think we should look into, drop comment. Sometimes the good guy actually do win. Just take a little longer than you hope.